Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Lakers Outsiders podcast. I am not Gary. Gary was supposed to be here, and then last minute tells me something like work or moving or something. I think that he's just been celebrating too much that Joel Berry got a summer league contract with the Lakers, and now he's feeling the effects of that celebrating. Regardless, though, we wanted to come on, bring you guys another podcast. We brought back Mike Garcia, who we had on a couple weeks ago, leading up to the NBA draft. Mike, how you been?
Doing well. How's it going, man?
It's great. Now that the draft is over, everything picks up a notch. But for you, the draft's probably like your NBA Finals almost.
Yeah, it more or less pretty much is my Christmas, and then it leads up to Summer Pro League, which I always look forward to every summer. So,
yeah, and we will have plenty to talk about with that. We have a lot to talk about in general about the Lakers. It seems like we can't go more than about an hour without another rumor breaking. Magic Johnson goes wild today and starts throwing out timelines for signing players because that's worked so well in the past. What I can assure you is that we will have multiple podcasts this week. I'll put it this way. If we don't have two more podcasts this week, I will step down. I'll go full Magic Johnson.
You're calling your shot?
I'll go full Magic Johnson. But no, we have a special guest lined up for Thursday. And then Gary, Hani, and I are going to come on Saturday afternoon, and we'll talk a lot of free agency because it's going to be wild by then. But we'll jump back to it tonight. It's a lot of draft stuff. We'll start off overall. I know I kind of gave my thoughts draft night. Gary and Dylan Gary and Kyle did as well. But I just want to get your overall thoughts, Mike, on the draft class. We were talking a little bit about it before. I guess. Are you happy? Are you confused like a lot of us were? I guess what were kind of your initial thoughts on this class?
So considering the previous year's draft, I think the Lakers were really lucky in that whoever they had for best player available would have also exactly fit into whatever their team needs were. And frankly, there were a lot of needs to be fulfilled anyway. I think in this case, there were other priorities that they put to the forefront. And, I always listen to Pelinka or Magic. They always talk about, guys who move their feet or provide energy on the floor, guys who communicate. And this draft is a reflection of that.
The big, obviously our only first rounder we spend on Mo Wagner. And we had a question about it, which, we had some questions. I'll just kind of go to them throughout the podcast. But at AfaBrain, why wasn't Wagner projected to be a first rounder? He said, did everyone miss something, or are the Lakers just prioritizing shooting? Which, the question that I can ask there is, do you think the Lakers went with best player available, or do you think they went with more of a need and a stretch forward?
I think they went with their idea of what best player available was. Usually we look at draft, it's always skill and athleticism based, and I think they just prioritized more on the intangible side of things. But that being said, Wagner is really up there as an offensive player overall, and it's really difficult to find, a 4 or a 5 that not only shoots threes, but attacks a closeout and actually has a clue about passing and can hit the wing corner shooters as well. So that's what Wagner provides on the floor. It's the other side of the floor that I have my biggest concerns.
And we'll focus on Wagner here for a bit. And you kind of mentioned the shooting. I guess, is that something that you think will get him immediate playing time on the floor, is just how well he can shoot the ball?
Absolutely. Just considering how Brook Lopez, slowly adapted into his role last year as a Laker, and he's a proven veteran and I think at least a one-time All-Star. Wagner can just step right in and knock those same exact shots down. I know Brook is more of a prominent post player as well, and he's effective. But all of those trail plays where the center is trailing in, like mid transition or pick and pop situations, Wagner can just knock those shots down with complete ease. There's no rehearsal for him. That's what comes natural to him. So,
I think the other thing that he does well, it doesn't necessarily reflect in the raw numbers, his assist totals, but he is a good passer, a good, especially in a lot of the ways that the Lakers will use him at the top of the key or finding cutters, stuff like that. I mean, I guess, what do you think kind of about the other, at least offensively, the other parts of his game other than the shooting?
So he is just a face-up player altogether. If the primary focus of his offensive game is based around that jump shot, but if you take that out, then he can attack the closeout. So he's driving to the hoop. So if you take that away from him, then he knows that when the defense is coming to him, and then he can see both corners to the 3-point line and just hit that short roll pass, basically. Or he's all the way at the rim, and he shows pretty good footwork and then uses spin moves to get all the way to the hoop. I mean, just a quick thing. I mean, spot up percentages, it's 95%. 75% percentile. But even just outside of looking at points per possession, he hits 48% from the field just in spot up situations. That's really high. That's a guard number. Mm-hmm. So the guy's just a knockdown shooter, basically. And I'm not worried about the offensive end overall.
Is it fair? I've watched some of his tape. This might be a bit of a lazy comparison, but just watching his ability to shoot and handle and create, I mean, does he in any way kind of remind you of Kyle Kuzma a bit on offense? A bigger version, obviously?
It's funny that you mentioned that, because I thought of the same exact thing. He's not as fast or as bouncy as Kuzma is, but I try to think of centers that are kind of along that line of similar offense, and guys like Vucevic kind of came to mind. Mm-hmm. The highest outlier outcome possible would be someone like Jokic. Jokic took 3 to 4 years to develop that really high level passing skill, but it's not like Wagner's completely clueless there. Obviously, that's something that can be improved on too, but it's the shooting that makes his game overall. If that's not working, then he has to compensate somewhere else.
The elephant in the room with regards to Wagner, though, is the defense, which isn't pretty. I guess, where are the concerns for you defensively for him?
So, just going off of synergy, I mean, just 58% of his defensive possessions were post up, and he's below average, right? And the next lowest is spot up situations, which are average, which at the NCAA level is a little bit concerning when translating that to the next level overall. If there is one really great bright spot, it's how well he can test jump shots in the half court. He actually ranks in the 90th percentile overall, where he gives up about 26.7% from the field. So that's great. It's a reflection that he's aware, he does have motor, he does move his feet. It's not for any lack of trying or lack of awareness. It's post-up, which is basically he needs to build strength in order to handle those guys, or other kinds of situations where, he can get exposed defensively, but that's pretty much it. When I'm reviewing the tape, though, he comes out and he hedges hard, which really surprises me. Usually centers that don't have confidence in their athleticism, they'll soft hedge a little bit, maybe they switch, but the fact that he's actually trying to trap out to 20, 25 feet on a point guard, maybe delay him a little bit so he can actually buy some time to recover, that's kind of a big deal. That says something about his effort and what he's trying to do on the defensive end on the floor. So, sure, there are ways to compensate. I'm hoping that he can, develop some core strength at least to handle some post-up situations, because the way that the playoffs have been laid out, and perhaps throughout the season, opposing teams are going to exploit every single mismatch that they can find. And as soon as they see Wagner on the oh, it's a rookie, let me post him up. And it won't matter who it is. So that's a big concern for me.
I think the biggest aspect that worries me is not necessarily that he's really bad in posting. And in just one aspect, it's that there's a lot of things he struggles with. The Lakers switched a ton last year defensively, and he did next to none of that at Michigan. And when he did, it was bad. He has slow feet, but he also isn't, like you've mentioned, he isn't strong in the post. He gets out-muscled. There's just a lot of things defensively, I think, that are going to really limit how much time he sees on the floor. Because if you're going to struggle as much as I think he will defensively, you're going to have to be an incredible offensive player. That's not to say I think he's if the Lakers keep Randall around, I think that's a really good player for him to learn from, because Randall has some of the similar physical limitations. Randall's obviously a lot stronger and has become a lot quicker. He's a big who's not a rim protector, who had to adjust to being able to switch out on guards and stuff like that. So I also think just being on an NBA kind of workout regimen and a strength and conditioning program will do wonders for him, because the effort's there, like you said, 100%. I don't fault the effort at all. There's just a lot of physical limitations right now, and you've seen what just one off season can do for guys like Lonzo and Kuzma this year. They look like totally different guys. So be interesting to see kind of long term how he pans out. But I do think he'll see time on the court right away, mainly because the Lakers were so bad in terms of shooting last year, and they were so desperate for shooters. So Wagner will be interesting to see. The next pick they made, second round pick, certainly this guy was not remotely on my radar. Isaac Bongo. You watch a lot of film. Was he on your radar, and what was your reaction to that?
I was surprised that Isaac Bongo was the pick. I had a lot of other guys in mind, but I was aware of who he was as a player. I mean, generally speaking, he's a point forward, and for all the footage that we could actually grab out of international play, that's all we could really gather. And it's funny because when you're watching how he plays, it's like watching two plays that he runs all game long. It's that middle of the floor pick and roll situation. He gets all the way to the hoop, and he has really long strides. He has an in and out dribble, and he just extends, which is great. Mm-hmm. And if he kicks out, he's really good at driving kick situations, actually. I call it short-range playmaking, where if he draws that initial defender, he'll find the open man, but that open man's got to be within 10 feet. He's not the advanced passer just yet. He's not a real point guard yet. But if he does a driving kick situation out of that pick and roll, he just relocates straight to that opposite corner. And when you look at his shot chart, all of his shots are literally the right side of the key and that one corner, and then everything else is pretty much empty. So there's a lot of upside for him, considering, his effectiveness is basically an L shape on the floor. He's got a lot more floor to work with, and he needs to expand his game there.
So Bongo last year with the Frankfurt Skyliners, I believe, is the team he played with. As an 18-year-old, averaged 7 points, 7.5 points, almost 3.5 rebounds, and 2.3 assists. I know we talked about it on draft night. He's not a shooter. The form is very much a work in progress. I guess I know it's still kind of far out there, and we haven't seen a lot of him. But I mean, what type of does he project to be? Just kind of a bigger point guard? Do you see him as a non-shooting forward or point forward? I guess what kind of projection do you have for him?
I see a guy who basically grabs boards, pushes tempo, and does a lot of grab and go at either forward spot. He's got the height and length to cover either spot, and I don't think he lacks athletically. We have to keep in mind, I think he's like 18 and a half years old, so there's a lot of development left for him still. The jump shot, it's a little bit concerning because it's slow developing. The elbow starts outward first before he releases. But the fact is, he actually tries shooting those corner shots. He relocates right off the bat as soon as he lets go of the ball. I mean, that's foundation to start with overall. So I think he might be considered best player available according to, whatever the Lakers had on their chart. And he might be just one of those guys.
I think what's kind of stood out to me most in watching videos of him is just how intelligent of a player he is for being 18 years old. He knows where open guys are on drives. You mentioned driving kicks. He knows where the help's coming from, where he can kick. He knows where to relocate to. He gets open for three. There's a hesitancy for him to shoot it because the jumper is so bad, but he definitely knows where to be on the court, which I think will help him a lot in the development. I just think he probably has a lot of work to do before he really can contribute. But as you said, he's 18. He won't turn 19 until early November. Crazy to think about. I mean, again, I know we haven't seen a lot of him, but I mean, is he a guy that you think is going to most likely spend the whole year in the G League?
That's very possible, and I think with the South Bay Lakers, it gives them an option to experiment with positionless basketball for a change. We were lucky enough to see Ingram succeed in a backup point role for a month when Lonzo was out, and he did really. I would argue that was probably his best month in the 2 years that he's been in the league, and he's maybe 20 years old now. So, not that I'm projecting that Bongo will have those kind of leaps offensively. Those are huge leaps that Ingram takes. But considering that he's an effective player on the floor with his limited abilities so far, says something about his feel for the game. And as soon as he starts expanding upon that, then it'll just unlock everything else from pick and roll play, shooting from mid-range shots, hitting different areas of corner threes. And that's where you get a real high upside player.
I think and we'll talk about this a little bit later on the podcast, but I think out of everybody that's going to be on the G League roster, he might be the one I'm most anxious or excited to watch, just to see what he does against NBA level competition with NBA level teammates, because he was playing, I believe, in the second division in Germany. Some of the players he was going against were not NBA caliber, I will say nicely. There were some really bad players out there, and he, at being, I think, 6'8", and with a huge wingspan, he just towered over guys, and he could just look over defenses and find guys that way. I'm basically just interested in seeing if he still has the same type of passing vision and the feel for the game when he's going against NBA players and in a sped-up game. The Lakers are going to play fast. He's going to get the ball and run. Can he still play with the same level of IQ when the game's moving that much faster? So I was really excited to hear that he's coming over to play in the Summer League. I was worried with how I don't know that he'll be able to play in the California Classic, because the trade won't officially go through until July 6th, I believe.
Right.
So I don't know that he'll play in that, but if he's coming over, he'll play in Las Vegas, which I'm really excited for. Last guy the Lakers took. It only took me actually about 48 hours to get his name down to spell. I could say it, but spelling it was another thing. Hani and I both have it down. We were both incredibly excited because we really didn't even need to write it that many times. But V. Makai arguably one of the best shooters in the draft.
Yeah.
I guess, what'd you think of getting a player like that in the late 40s?
So, Svi Mikhailuk, I mean, I kind of think, this is just me personally. I was thinking of him as the guy that Nick Stauskas was supposed to be, and then I'll expand on that. So, Stauskas out of Michigan, did a lot of work with pick and roll play and dribble handoff situations along with spot ups, and that's where he was most effective. By the time he got to the NBA, a lot of the play types that he's in now, he comes off screens and he's shooting in motion, and he lost a lot of weight compared to his Michigan self, and I don't think that's who he is as a player. I think Mikhailuk kind of does similar things, just going over quick synergy, spot up situations. He shoots 41% from the field. He's 82nd percentile. Transition, he's 83rd percentile. The stuff with pick and roll ball handling, I would say there's more upside there than what synergy may actually show, only because at Kansas you have Devontae Graham, who's ball dominant for a point guard, and he's getting 7 assists by himself. Your second leading assist man is actually Mikhailuk at almost 3 assists per game, and then you have Newman behind him at just over 2 assists per game altogether. So those are your 3 primary initiators, and I think Mikhailuk, when he's in the right situation, well, he won't really settle for those pull-up mid-range games or mid-range shots. He'll opt for either hitting the roll man or take that pull-up 3, and he's a dead-eye shooter. That's all it really boils down to. In those spot-up situations, he's great. And one of the best things about him is in guarded catch and shoot, he's 84th percentile. He shoots 41%. But when he's open, he's about 56% from the field. That includes 3-point shots altogether. I'm just talking about shots that he actually makes. So if he's open, he's making that shot. The one thing to stop him really is to basically make him pull up off the dribble, and I don't think he's really going to be asked to do that. If he's in a tertiary playmaking position and in a pick and roll spot, and he gets caught in that no man's land from mid-range, I think he's just kicking back out to reset the offense all over again. So I'm very high on what Mikhailuk can do for the Lakers, and I thought he was a great pick at 47. The guy that we see at Kansas is even a different guy from what we see in FIBA play. When he plays international ball, he's an attacking guard, and it's really surprising to see how often he gets into the paint, finishes there, and I think he just has a certain level of confidence because I think he's bigger than more guys there than compared to college ball. But the fact is, he's an aggressive player still, and he's aware of what his abilities are. He kind of plays within that little box, and as long as he's efficient with that, he could be a successful NBA player.
To touch on a couple more synergy numbers, I know Crane Just McBasketball Tim was tweeting them out in the hours and day after the draft. The one that stood out to me and the one that I was searching for while you were talking were his catch and shoot open 3-point percentages. As a sophomore, he shot 53%. As a junior, 52%. As a senior, 55%. Yeah, that'll translate. I will happily take that at
right?
47. I think you did make an interesting point, and one that he kind of reiterated a bit in his press conference today, in that the role he played with Kansas isn't the role that he's going to play in the NBA. Kansas this season and at times really throughout his career at Kansas, Svi's career at Kansas, they were low on big men, and Svi said that he had to play the 4 at times. They were playing really weird lineups and having Svi will be a shooting guard and maybe a small forward at times. In the NBA, they were having him play the 4. So his role will be a lot different. It'll be a lot less creation and a lot more just shooting and just coming off screens and shooting. To get a player, I really think that he's a guy that can come in and give you spot minutes, maybe 10 minutes a night, 8-10 minutes a night, and just be able to shoot the ball. Split some of the minutes that you were giving Corey Brewer or maybe Tyler Ennis. God forbid he's not on the roster next year, but split some of those minutes. Give them to Svi, who can knock down threes and spread the floor. And I really think that he I really think he'll be a contributor. Are there any? I mean, I know he has impressively a -4 wingspan. His wingspan's only 6'4". How much will that limit him defensively?
So I gave serious thought to his wingspan by height, and I mean, I'm almost a foot shorter, and I almost have the same wingspan as Speed does.
That's not
like
great.
it's a different. It's like a different. It's the difference of one of my fingers. That's how close it is.
Yeah.
But the thing is, he's found a way to be in the right spots at all times, that he has his awareness up there, right? He's not really a guy who's going to block a lot of shots or force a lot of turnovers, but he's going to be in the right places to contest the shots, and that's kind of all that we need out of a spot-up shooter. The fact that he switched between 4-3-2 on Kansas, I think is a big deal. It reflects on, some defensive versatility at least, and I know he has some post base in him too. It's more difficult to see at the NCAA level when you see a lot of weird lineups out there. I mean, even just from a defensive standpoint, the things he does best is defend spot ups. So 84th percentile in spot up defense against, 96th percentile off screens. That's kind of exactly what you're looking for in the wing player. The frequency might be different, but those are the, two of the prime areas that you're looking for overall. So as long as he's able to hold his own defensively, maybe buy some time on team rotation and, be better than a coin flipped at the other end of the floor for making threes, he's going to get minutes.
And like Bongo, Svi is incredibly young, considering he spent 4 years at Kansas. He just turned 21 June 10th, so about just shy of 3 weeks ago. All three, I mean, Wagner's the oldest player in this draft class, and he's 21. He'll be 21 for basically the whole NBA season, save for our deep playoff run. He will, but all three guys. The other thing, as we kind of wrap up talking about the actual draftees, two things about these guys I've noticed, and really even in just us talking about them, they drafted three guys that have high basketball IQ. I think. Yeah. All three guys are aware. They're just smart players, which goes a long way in the NBA. If you know what you should be doing and know where you should be on the floor and know what defenses are trying to do, know what the offense is trying to do, things like that, it's going to go a long way in keeping you on the floor. The other thing, and I said it on draft night, and the more I've kind of looked and talked and discussed it, the more I really believe that this is a draft class for a team that's expecting to add a superstar to the roster, or multiple superstars. Do you agree with that assessment?
It definitely felt that way. When the draft was finally over, I was thinking of multiple things like, are these guys for the Lakers or are they for another team? Because they're all international guys. They seem like Spurs guys. These are Spurs-like picks. Or maybe it's Atlanta. There's some Spurs guys in that front office, and this would be those type of guys too. But if not, and they're Laker guys, they still fit right in the system. And, I think these are guys that you can plug and play into any team anyway, and they're going to contribute right off the bat just with their shooting. Bonga, it's not expected. With Mikhailuk and with Wagner, it is. So for rookie season, I think that's expected early on. And then, yes, there's further development down the line, and the upside's left to be determined, and it's really up to them. But if the work ethic is there, these guys are rotation players, and sometimes that's all you can ask.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you can get Wagner rotation players as rookies, like similar vein to what Hart was, that's wins. I'll take that every day of the week to get rotation players that late in the draft, especially in the second round. I guess just the final thing on this draft class, I think we said it that night, but I guess overall, what type of grade would you give this draft class for the Lakers?
Overall, I'm at a B-. The only reason why I would include the minus is because the way I approach the draft is clearly different from all other teams out there. And so what I'm always prioritizing are, two-way skills, just the ability to stay on the floor. And I think, hey, if this guy doesn't really have to figure out how to play defensively, he could stay on the floor at least. And it's not as much of a concern. If I have a concern, that's what it is for Mikhailuk and for Wagner right off the bat. There were other guys on the board that I would have considered as well, but they went to other great teams too, and I can't really complain about it. So solid B-. I'm good with that.
And to be fair to these guys, it's hard a lot of times to find a rookie that's going to be good defensively. But there are some very glaring concerns with these guys. I thought it was also interesting. I was trying to find the exact comment. You mentioned whether we were drafting for someone else, which I was surprised that we made all three selections. But Magic had an interesting comment today. Somebody they were basically asking him, "Are you going to trade Mo Wagner? Do you expect him to be on the team?" And Magic straight up said he better be on the team, which I thought was interesting, given all the rumors that are going around. Maybe they just assume that they'll trade other guys, and that teams won't want Mo Wagner. It was just a really interesting comment to make in a public setting like that. Turns out it wasn't the most interesting comment Magic would make by the end of the day. The Lakers then did a couple things in undrafted free agency we'll touch on a bit. As I said, we're going to have our guest on Thursday is Scott Chasen, a beat writer for the Kansas Jayhawks. He's going to have a lot more on Malik Newman and Svi. So you don't have to get too deep in here, but the Lakers did sign Malik Newman to a two-way deal. I guess what are your thoughts on Newman? He only played 2 years of college. He was on again, off again at Kansas, but when he was on, he looked really good. I guess what are your thoughts on Newman?
I'm actually really excited for Newman. I was expecting him to get drafted right off the bat. If you want to check out Synergy, I'm not even going to look it up right now. I just know he's a high-level, 3-level scorer. Mm-hmm. So spot-ups, he's high frequency. He's hitting around 40% plus. Pull-up off the dribble, it's going to be the same exact thing. And over half of his shots are behind the arc. He's opportunistic when he's attacking the basket. They're mostly in straight lines, but I think that was well within Kansas's system as well. But the fact that he's able to create plays as the third playmaker for Kansas is a big deal already in itself. I'm hoping that he'll expand on those point guard abilities more so than wing abilities, because we need him to be a passer and hopefully a backup point guard in the future. That's going to determine, basically the rest of his career. I don't want him to be, a bigger Gennaro Pargo or Jordan Clarkson light or whatever. He's got more in his game to it. He's just too good of a shooter to let that pass up. So when that passing ability expands and he just basic drive kicks, basic pick and roll situations, if he works his way up, he's able to make those shots at a high rate. I'm really looking forward to seeing him this summer. So
Newman, this is just kind of real rough math on hoop math. For last season was a 59% shooter at the rim. About 30% of his shots came from there. He shot 38% on 2-point jumpers and then 41% on 3-point jumpers. In terms of 3-level scoring, that's about as good as it gets. I do agree that he is a scorer. I guess my concern at times, I didn't watch a lot of him. I felt like at times he settled a bit too much for three-pointers. 51% of his shots last year were three-pointers, which, to be fair, he shot 41% from three, but that's a lot of shots from three when you're as good of a scorer at the rim as he was last year. I'm sure that's a big thing that they will discuss with him. But yeah, I think he could be a really interesting prospect, interesting player, especially as you said, if he can develop some more of those point guard abilities. He's a 6'3" guard. He basically has to become a point guard. He doesn't have the height or enough of a wingspan to really be a shooting guard long term. Maybe in certain lineups and certain situations, but he really needs to kind of develop some of those point guard skills. The Lakers had had four other guys they basically signed on different types of non-two-way deals. Jeffrey Carroll, who, if you guys didn't read, he was incredibly gracious with his time and took time with us last weekend to talk about his kind of career up to this point in his life. It's really fascinating. He redshirted as a freshman. He didn't pick up a basketball. Well, he did, but he didn't, as he said, didn't take basketball seriously until middle school. And here he is as an undrafted free agent. But they signed him to a deal. They signed Joel Berry, as I mentioned, Malik Pope from San Diego State, Jonathan Williams from Gonzaga, and this one was I saw while we were live that he signed, or that Nick King. I'm trying to pull up
Nick King. Yep.
Yeah, he. I think Middle Tennessee is where he played. He signed with the Lakers, or will be playing with the Lakers as well. So I guess is there anything about those guys? We don't have to really go deep dives into any of them. Is there any one player, anything about those guys that stand out to you?
The guy that stands out the most is Malik Pope. Any diehard basketball fan in Southern California has been paying attention to that guy for at least 4 years. I remember, I think, end of freshman or sophomore year, he was considered a lottery pick, and then injuries kind of derailed things a little bit for him. But this past season for San Diego State, he played more time at the 5, which is a little bit surprising considering, I think he's only like 205 or 210 pounds listed. And defensively, surprised me. Against post-ups, he's the 90th percentile best defender. And that really caught me off guard. He's a guy that's not going to win by post base at all, but he will, provide a lot of motor and move his feet a little bit. It's really critical for him to narrow his game to 3 specific things, which is basically be a roll man and pick and roll, grab and go in transition. He's really great at that. And then when it comes to shooting, just spot up. Don't do anything fancy. Don't put the ball on the floor, because he's really efficient with his spot up shooting, even up to behind the arc. He gets a double kind of in that in-between game from mid-range. He's capable, but, he's a really good fluid athlete, and as long as he sticks to those primary things, I think he could stick in the league. I think, let's see here. I was able to watch a little bit of Nick King. I saw his shooting ability, and it's definitely there. Let's see here. Jonathan Williams is a little bit of a postman altogether, but he was really efficient considering his size. I was surprised by that considering he's from Gonzaga.
Yeah, he's kind of a mobile big man. He's not gonna. I guess athletic might be a better term. He's not gonna hit threes for you, but he's gonna be able to move up and down the court.
Right.
Be a good pick and roll guy for the summer league at least.
Yeah, he. Oh, go ahead.
Well, no, that's fine. And whatever else you had, you can go on.
Oh, no, he was just really efficient in the paint. That really surprised me overall. But in terms of upside, or remaining upside of the rest of the roster, it's Malik Pope that really stands out. And there's some of us, including myself, that are still kind of rooting for him. He's got all the measurements. He just needs to add some strength, get some health. He's got a 7'2" wingspan, and, there's always that chance that not only can he make the league, but, just be more than a rotation player. So I'm holding my hope out for him too.
Looking at Summer League itself, we've talked a lot about these guys that are going to be on the team. There are a couple guys that are going to be returning to the team as well. Magic said today that Josh Hart only is probably only going to play 2 games. I guess I'll start off with him briefly. Is there anything specifically you're looking for him in Summer League?
So Summer League is basically 2 things. One, you're trying to get better at what you're already best at, or you're going to experiment with your game. I think with Josh Hart, it's going to be a little bit of experimentation. We saw him in a 3-and-D role for the Lakers last year. We didn't really see any kind of pick-and-roll ball handling situations that he was in, or any real initiating of an offense. So it's possible that he's going to be thrown into those situations at least a little bit more. But other than that, I think he's just refining on his craft, especially on his shooting. And that's pretty much it. When it's Caruso, the one thing that would really help him stick is just being assertive with his shot and just knocking them down. I think there were multiple times throughout the season where he came off the bench and he's trying so hard just to facilitate to the rest of the team. And then he'd find himself open for that half second, and he's capable of making that 3-point shot, but then he'll pass it up. So I think in this case, it's the pro league. Shoot your shot, make them efficiently, and then just expand your game from there on out.
Caruso definitely looked like a different player in the G League versus in the NBA. He was a lot more assertive in the G League, I thought, in the handful of games I watched than he was in the NBA, which maybe that's what they asked of him. But I do agree that seeing a little more assertiveness in the league, in the NBA, will go a long way for him. And maybe that'll be the case now that he's one of the second-year guys. I think he's going to end up getting a lot of run this season or this summer league, especially if Josh Hart's only playing 2 games. The other returnee will be Thomas Bryant, who looks absolutely incredible in his Instagram video workout highlight clips. I'm all in. You're going to have to say nice things about Thomas Bryant if you want to stay on this podcast.
Fair enough. Okay, I'll be gentle. How about that?
We'll see.
Thomas Bryant. Okay, well, look, everybody knows that, we're all rooting for him, and everybody wants to focus on, hey, can he defend in space in that pick-and-roll situation? I don't think that is as big a deal as it's made out to be. He might get caught up in a few plays like that, and that's fine. Not every center can actually defend in space. What will be a big step and very easily achievable goal is just to be more physical out there on the floor. You see that guy cutting through the paint, bump him. If that's your assignment, box him out. It's just these subtle little things that he can do can keep him on the floor. And as long as he's on the floor, then he can be that lob target or that 3-point shooter that we're all looking forward to seeing in the future. In the G League, it's way too comfortable for him. He's blowing everybody out with his offense, right? And he doesn't even have to dominate the post in order to get to, 30-plus points or high 20s in the G League. So now it's just these subtle nuances to his game, just being more physical on the floor, and then he can warrant a lot more playing time.
There were a couple people. I agree with just about everything you said. You said nice enough things. I think the biggest thing was just his defense. For as athletic as he may look on offense, if he doesn't play defense, he's not going to get any time out there. So him being able to defend in space and stay in front of the quicker guards, or be able to use his wingspan to protect the rim will be absolutely massive for him. But I mean, just comparing his final season at IU versus some of the stuff I've seen this summer, just the fluidity and the athleticism looks absolutely he looks almost like a different player at times. You could always see in spurts at IU that he had it, but man, he looks just so much more fluid and so much more kind of comfortable and in his athleticism, if that makes sense. He looks like an entirely different player in a lot of ways. I wish we had that version of Thomas Bryant at IU. There were a couple people who kind of asked about the lineup for Summer League. I guess what would you expect the starting lineup to be, assuming we have Josh Hart for the first 2 games?
So I'm expecting Thomas Bryant, Wagner at 4, just to experiment with that. Hart at 3. He excelled in that position last year. Mm-hmm. Newman at 2, and then Caruso at 1. I mean, that's a very competitive team. If it's not Caruso and it's Joel Berry who starts, because starting lineups don't start throughout the entire Summer League anyway. Joel Berry, I mean, he's not the greatest shooter or anything, but he distributes the basketball, and sometimes that's all you need out of a point guard. Some guy, just a guy to move the ball, not turn it over, and then take an open shot. Berry does that in spades, so I'm not really worried about the roster at all. It's going to be entertaining, and there's going to be a lot to look forward to. So,
would you have Newman start over Svi?
Oh, good point.
Okay, I was just making sure. Well, I would personally have Svi starting over, which in reality it's probably not going to really matter, because when Hart, after, I don't know if the 2-game limit is only for the Sacramento thing or the Vegas thing, but
right.
I mean, once he's done, I would assume that Svi and Newman will both start, 1 at the 3 and 1 at the 2. I guess. Yeah. Go ahead.
Oh, when I think about Mikhailuk, I always think of him as a 3 and not a 2. It's not positional size I'm worried about, as opposed to foot speed. Mm-hmm. The guy is already 6'6" plus. I mean, he's already what?
6'8".
He's listed at 6'8". I don't. You know how I use measurements without shoes, right?
Yeah,
so you know.
Yeah.
But he's already 220 to 230 or so. Just play him at 3. He's going to take advantage of everything and get to those corner shots. That's exactly where you want him.
Is there, I mean, it may be the same answer. Is there a lineup in particular that you're excited to see, or a player in a certain position or anything like that?
It would be Newman at 1.
Oh, okay.
Mikhailuk, and then assuming that there's no Josh Hart, then putting Bongo out there as a point forward, because now it gets really interesting, right? If you have Bongo running an offense, you have 2 other shooters on the floor in Mikhailuk and Newman. You can run a weird, Golden State Warrior set where, they have Iggy and Draymond Green initiating their offense, and their guards are just running off screens. Why not just do the same thing? See what happens, right? I think it gets. Yeah, I think it gets interesting with Malik Pope and then Mo Wagner up front. Now the entire floor is completely stretched. We know what Thomas Bryant can do. I mean, I don't think he's going to get a full load of playing time anyway. But those guys all together, there's a lot of grab-and-go ability out there to push pace. Guys who can run a modern offense and stretch the floor out there. Not really too concerned about defense. It's Summer League. But you just want to see that they can execute their sets to whatever that means, and then just do what they do best on the floor. Those 5 guys look like they can gel very easily all together.
That is almost identical to the lineup that I would have wanted to see. Mainly for me, I just want to see Bongo running an offense with 5 shooters around him, 5 legitimate NBA caliber shooters. I find he looks like just an incredibly fascinating player, and I just want to see what level he's at with regards to kind of NBA caliber talent. Is he ready to compete against NBA? I don't expect him to play NBA minutes this year, but is he at a level where he's able to have some form of success against NBA level defenders or opponents? So yeah, any lineup that's going to have him, I don't know how much they'll do it, because I don't know how much practice time he'll have with this trade, and I don't know what restrictions there are. But if he's able to go out there and run the offense in any way, any lineup that has him doing that will be the lineup I am most looking forward to. We had a couple questions to close. At ChiaPet74, friend of the show, said, where do we hang these Summer League banners at?
Why not just put them at the UCLA Training Center?
I like it. I was going to say cover the Clippers selfie banners with them, but Your answer works as well. He also asked, should LeBron be forced to play in the summer league so he can get acclimated to our schemes and young players?
I think his hoop IQ is so high that he doesn't even need to practice. Frankly, we need to save him for the season.
If LeBron played in one summer league game, how many points is he scoring?
I don't want him to get all Ricky Davis and literally just run every possession and just score 60 points in a half. I've seen that happen before. I don't want to see him do that again. Right? Save it for the playoffs. Just let him get, 8 points, like 13 assists because Makai and Newman were in the corners, bombing from 3. I'm good with that. He doesn't even need a rebound. Just don't move.
That's
just
fine
pass.
with me. This person at Young Chin, I'm sorry, I'm probably mispronouncing it, but he asked if Josh Hart only plays 2 games, what's the likelihood of the Lakers repeating as champions? I guess in general, does this team have enough talent, do you think, to repeat as champions again?
I'm not going to be as optimistic. I think they're going to compete very, very well. Summer League is really predicated on point guard play and ball distribution. We had Lonzo Ball last year. We were spoiled, right? So Joel Berry and Caruso can definitely help out with that. Unless Josh Hart decides to wreck shot, then we're going to be in the playoffs. We might be in a championship team, and then we'll just kind of take it from there. Yeah,
I think you were hit the nail on the head. We were spoiled last year with Kuzma playing the way he did and Lonzo running the show. I don't expect that to be much the case, but we're going to get plenty of chances to see these guys. Between the California Classic, I think they play 3 games there. They're guaranteed 5 games, I believe, at Vegas. Yep. That's 8 games. That's roughly what they played last year. I don't remember exactly how many. That's plenty of time to see what these guys can do, and that to me is the biggest thing, is just getting these guys kind of acclimated to that level. Last thing, I said I don't think anybody asked us really any questions about it, but I told you beforehand we're not going to have a podcast this week without talking about it. LeBron James and Paul George, it seems like there's a new rumor every day. You said you're a draft head and you don't deal a whole lot with this, but I'm going to put you on the spot. Are either of them Lakers on opening night next season?
I'll just shoot my shot and say both are Lakers.
Oh, okay. What's your actual answer then? Because you said that it wasn't going to be a fun one before the podcast.
I think if one's coming, both are coming, and I think that LeBron is coming. So I'd give it a 70-30 chance.
I like it. I do agree that if one's coming, both is coming. But, well, actually, I don't know. I think I'll put it this way. If LeBron comes, it's because Paul George is coming. But I think there's a scenario in which Paul George comes and LeBron doesn't. I don't know what the future would hold for the young assets because I see them making a move for another superstar if PG's there, but it'll be interesting to see. Mike, it was awesome talking to you again. We'll be sure to have you back maybe after Summer League's over just to talk some takeaways from Summer League and hopefully talk about what the offense is going to look like with LeBron and Paul George at it.
Sounds like a plan. Looking forward to that.
Absolutely. As I said a couple times, we'll have more episodes this week. If you're not already, subscribe to us on YouTube. If you're not watching live, we have the shows live. If you follow us on Twitter at Lakers Outsiders, you'll see when we're going to have live shows. If you'd like to subscribe to us on iTunes, leave a review. It helps us out a bunch. We're also on Podbean. We will be back on Thursday to talk a lot more about Svi and Malik Newman. And then we'll be back Saturday to preview what will be a fun free agency. So there'll be tons of content for you guys. Be sure to check out the website. We're always updating it with all the latest rumors. But for Mike, this is Jacob signing off. Have a great one.